Hey y'all, it's Nikki Winston. I am back with my good friend Erin Daber from Well Balanced Accountants. And this is part two of our CPA exam series where we are sharing tips, strategies, tactics, all the stuff you need to know to be successful on the CPA exam. So as we mentioned, Erin and I are both certified public accountants, and we had quite a journey with the exam. And so we've learned a lot along the way that we think is going to, well, we know is going to be beneficial to you guys as you embark on your CPA exam journeys. So, Erin, I'll let you introduce yourself again, and then we can jump in.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our first of this series, the first video. If you haven't tuned into that one, make sure you check that out as well. I am, as Nikki said, I am a CPA. I've been licensed for, I can't believe this, but like 10 years now. And it's been so long, I can't even imagine. But I feel like I'm in it because I'm working with my clients every single day, helping them along their CPA exam journey from a coaching perspective. So I'm working with them as they're studying and progressing through. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So we're sort of assuming in today's video that you've made the decision that now's the right time for you to take the exam.
Yes.
And so we're going to tackle some of the topics that again, these are still part of our top 10 most frequently asked questions from candidates. But looking at study materials, what study materials we recommend, how to choose one, what considerations maybe to take in choosing study materials. The question about supplemental materials, is that one study program enough, or are there other things that I should be looking into or considering? And then we'll also dive into some of the best CPA advice that we ever received along our individual journeys. So I think that'll be exciting to share with everyone too. So I'm excited to dive in. These are good topics.
Yeah, me too. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. There's a lot of people I know who are CPAs where they take the exams and they're like, look, I'm done. I don't want to have anything else to do with the CPA. But, Erin,
I get
it. Erin and I have a passion for this. And there's just so much misinformation out there, and there are a lot of candidates struggling alone when there's lots of support like Erin and myself and a lot of other resources to help you be successful on the journey. So as Erin said, we're going to talk about review courses, supplemental materials, advice that we've received, and let's jump right in. So Erin, let's talk about CPA review courses. We know that there are a ton of options out there, and on the surface, they all seem like they're different, or one might be better than the other. And it's just a lot to consider when you pick a course, right? You have to think about what you already know versus what you need to learn. How do you study? Are you a visual learner? Are you somebody who can read the whole book and figure it out? Do you like videos? So it really takes a lot of thought, asking questions. So let's jump in. Erin, share with us your advice for selecting a review course.
Yeah, you kind of hit on it. The biggest thing, first of all, I think we should say this is not sponsored. I don't get anything.
Right.
I personally don't get any kickbacks, although I probably should.
Yeah, that's crystal clear.
Yeah. We are not sponsored by anybody, but
at all.
Yeah, so I always let candidates know that too. I don't have a personal preference. I have seen people pass with just about every major study material out there. So if you've seen them at a career fair or a meet the firms or something like that, the chances are I've seen someone pass with those materials. I think the key thing to consider, and there are a lot of factors, but the most important thing in terms of determining whether you're going to be successful with this or not is what you pointed to is learning style match.
Yeah.
So making sure that if we assume that all the material in each of these programs is by and large the same, the main difference is in their delivery method and also in your, if we call it delivery and like receipt, how are you receiving the information. So I have people, I really recommend going in and getting the free trials. Most of them
Yes.
will offer free trials. So that's one way to see, okay, are they delivering the information in a way that makes sense for me, and can I receive it? So is this keeping me excited and engaged, or am I so bored, like I'm never going to be able to get through this material? So I think that's a really important place to start, is in that, finding that fit for you.
Yeah, I have to agree.
But what are your thoughts? So here's the comment that I get. There's such a disparity in price.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts if somebody comes to you and says, well, I'm choosing this one because it's less expensive?
So this is the scenario I like to share with people, is that let's say you have 10 CPA candidates. They're all studying for FAR. They all purchase the exact same materials.
Mm-hmm.
They take the FAR exam on the same day, all 10 candidates. And when score release comes around, they're going to have 10 different scores.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to your point. It depends on how do you study best. It's motivation is a huge factor. Some of those scores vary because some candidates studied harder than others.
Yeah.
And they didn't give up during those times, or they felt frustrated or defeated. But then there's also, how are you retaining the material? And like you mentioned, are you somebody who prefers the videos? Do you want to watch the videos and learn the content? Do you want to read the book and learn the content? So it really, there are a lot of factors that go into play. Some of the review courses tend to have these, they're like assessments to say, take this assessment to tell you which section you should take first, or how much information you already know. And I look at those as kind of marketing and sales tactics, to be quite honest. And I think either way it goes, at the end of the day and at the beginning of the next day, you're going to have to know it anyway. So whether you decide to take FAR first, or BEC, or audit, or reg, eventually you're going to have to learn it all anyway.
Yeah.
The good thing is a lot of the content overlaps, right? So when you study FAR, you're going to see some of that content repeat in audit, in reg, and BEC. So I tell candidates, first be clear about how you study best, and then ask some questions. Like Erin mentioned, use those free trials. Even if you have a free trial for every single course that's out there, it'll help you get clarity on which course that you want to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
And the pricing variances, I can't really, I have yet to narrow down what really drives that, because when I was studying, I purchased some or all of every single course.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really see too much difference. Like I had one course that I bought everything, the books, the videos, the flashcards, the everything. But I felt like the, I think it was BEC. I felt like the BEC content wasn't enough. And so I purchased BEC from another review course. Yeah. And it was really just because of how I learned. I felt like that course wasn't the best for BEC, but it was the best for a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. And I actually had one of my students tell me that, because she purchased like the whole, one of the popular review courses.
Right.
And she supplemented with our 101 coaching sessions. And I mean, we dive into the technical content. We practice multiple choice questions. We go through study guides. We talk about how to answer questions. And I like to get feedback from my clients to say, why did you select me out of the courses, out of all the other resources out there? And she said, I felt like I could relate to you because you took the computer exam. And when I watched the videos from my course, I know that those people took the exam like 30 years ago. And so I kind of laughed, but I said, you know what? That's kind of true. I mean, a lot of these videos are, you know, no shade, no tea, but they are dated. Right. And some of these instructors probably took more than likely 99% chance they took the pen and paper exam when SOX wasn't even a thing. So they weren't even tested on SOX and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I just tell candidates, figure out how you best learn, utilize those trials, which are really good. They give you if not full access, enough access to understand, to go through some multiple choice. They might give you like full access to select modules instead of the whole thing. So just really figuring out how you best learn, which one works best for you, and then making the investment. I mean, I was so ready to pass and be done. I didn't care how much it cost. I mean, like I said before, I went to Barnes and Noble to the education section, and any book that was about the CPA exam, I bought it. And that was on top of me having a full review course with the online materials, the books that they mailed to me, and all of that. So it really depends on how you learn best.
I would say in terms of kind of evaluating different courses, I think the free trial is the best way to go because you get your hands-on, sort of a hands-on experience. One cautionary tale, I would say, in terms of pricing, expect to pay for a full bundle. Expect to pay, I would say, at least $1,500. I mean, it's going to be an investment. It truly is an investment. So if you see something out there for $1,500 and you see something for $250, that should be a red flag, right? It's a little bit, that's not always true, but for the most part, you kind of get what you pay for. And if most of them are upwards of $1,000, those others may be intended more of as supplementary material and not as a standalone course.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I share with people is that this content of the CPA exam is changing all the time, sometimes every quarter. I mean, at least annually, there's some sort of change. So if you can imagine, those changes have to be rolled out through the videos, the textbooks, the questions, everything. That takes an entire team of technical experts to roll out those changes. So if you see a company that is one person doing, a full-on review course, it's a little challenging, right? Like with the exception of somebody like doing tutoring and notes and stuff like you're doing, because we can stay on top of it for one-on-one people.
Right.
But in terms of program, so that's just it's just a cautionary tale. Just be careful.
Yeah. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I went down that road of feeling like as I do my one-on-ones, that I wanted to create a full comprehensive course. And my struggle was my students need me right now. So, I eventually want to create a course, and I've started working with a team because I have a section complete, but to your point, it took me forever to get that one section completed. And so I've started outsourcing that piece of it so that I could be present for my students. And there's a ton of work that goes on in the background as far as updating the content. The AICPA updates the blueprints at least annually. So this year was January and July.
Right.
So having to review the blueprints in detail, understand what the changes are versus what your course is offering. And then, like you said, outsourcing that to a team to get all that done takes a lot of work. And the other thing on pricing is I've seen courses offer financing options. I've also seen things where people are offering access for like $60 a month or something to their course. So I would just caution, like Erin said, if you see a course that looks like it's a bargain, then that's a red flag to say, what am I actually getting out of this? Because people will find content online, repurpose it, put their logo on it, and then say that they have a course. And that was really why with working with my clients, I wanted to be present to say, let's meet up at the library. Let's do a Zoom session for people who are outside of Atlanta. Let's share some screens. Let's look through the study guides and see what you're struggling with. And I think that's where the value add comes in. Some more feedback I got from my clients, because every time we have a session, I send them a survey because I need to know what do I need to do to best help them. And one of the things was that they purchase these courses, they spend all this money, and then that's it. Like I have books, I have videos, but if I just need to talk to somebody, I don't have a person that I can talk to. So that's why I felt like the coaching sessions are more beneficial and more valuable to the candidates, because it's easy to just say, hey, I'm going to mail you my book and then you just have at it. But
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm struggling with pages 1 through 100 of this 100-page
Right.
book. So help
Yeah.
me figure this out. And
Yeah.
that's my thing is I really want to be present for the candidates because that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last thing I'll say about pricing and review courses is, it might seem like a lot, but if it's a $500 difference between a course and the one you really want and you really feel comfortable with, I
Mm-hmm.
would still suggest going with the one you feel comfortable with, because if it helps you to not fail 2 exams, it has paid for itself.
Yeah.
Right? Pricing difference wise, that's about what it takes, or about what it costs to take 2 exams, somewhere around $500. So that price difference, it may seem like a big deal in the beginning, but it will, promise you, it will pay for itself. It will be nothing
Yes.
compared to the cost of retaking exams.
Yeah. And we're accountants. We're all about ROI. So the ROI
Right?
is huge on
Yeah, we don't have to
investing.
explain that to
Not
these
not
guys.
paying, you're not paying, you're investing in yourself. So
That's right. Yes, it's an investment.
yep.
Okay, so we hinted to it a little bit, but what about supplementary programs?
Um Again, this kind of goes back to evaluating the course. Sometimes people are like, okay, I'm going to take this course just because I've talked to people and this is the one that they say is the best,
Mhm.
the one that my friend or my colleague passed with. So I'm going to go with this one.
Yeah.
And then you realize that you and your friend have totally different study styles. And so you're starting to look for other resources to help you out. So
Mhm.
if you can't get to a point where you can explain a topic to somebody else, if you can't make sense of the who, what, where, when, why, and how, then you probably need to supplement with something else.
Mhm.
And I will say, the courses, the review courses give you a ton of information. You still have to decipher and figure out what do you care about. Like with me, for example, when I was studying for FAR, a lot of people are like, oh my God, FAR is so hard. And it's like, how do you know? And you haven't even taken the exam. But they're going based off of what other people have said. And if I
Right.
would have did that, then I would have been just totally overwhelmed with FAR. The benefit for me is that when I took FAR, my day job was like 90% of the material. So I didn't have to go through every single page in the book and every single video because I already knew what I knew from having real world experience. So it really depends on how effective your current review course is for you and if you feel prepared on exam
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
Um, my mama told me I was overstudying. Like one time when I failed, she's like, you probably overstudied because every time I talked to you, you were studying. And so it is possible to get
It's a
so
thing.
deep in that rabbit hole that you just feel like,
Mhm.
okay, I know I haven't slept in 3 days, but I got to get through this last section. Like that's not what you want to do. And if you feel like you need to supplement for that reason, then you probably just need to take a step back and reevaluate your study strategy.
Yeah. I would say I think that's a perfect like evaluation of that option. Where you're choosing from, like that's what I hear from my coach's ear, right? Am I choosing a supplemental material because I am freaking out inside and I
Right.
feel not prepared and
Right.
I need all the things and I need to answer all the questions and it has to be perfect? Because
Right.
chances are then you don't probably need it.
Yeah.
But if you run into that scenario where things aren't making sense in a particular topic, maybe overall the materials are working for you and just for a particular exam, it's not clicking. The other
Mhm.
time I recommend it is if you feel like you have begun to memorize the questions. If you
Yes.
have gone through so many multiple choice and you're just sort of doing it on autopilot and not necessarily thinking about it and digesting the information,
Yeah.
that's a good time to supplement with a new test bank of questions just to change things up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that's the more important evaluation to make is, am I doing this because I'm scared or am
Mhm.
I doing this because I really am not getting it? And I think as important as it is to be comfortable with the material, especially on an exam like FAR, it's not necessarily critical that you are an expert in everything.
Right.
right? We got to get a 75%. We don't need 100%. So I just think, especially on something like FAR, one of the things I emphasize to my clients is, an exam over your specialty, if you're a tax person and you're taking reg, you might be an expert on just about all of
Right.
it. But
Right.
reg is FAR is such a huge exam content-wise
Mm-hmm.
that it's not plausible. It's not predictable that you're going to be an expert in all of it. And so that's okay. As long as you're really strong in those other areas, you've still got a really good chance to pass. So I think just setting your expectations realistically as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I had a client one time who said, well, I'm going to push my exam back because I didn't get through all the multiple choice questions. That's fine. And that's why I say, if you understand the who, what, where, when, why, and how of one topic, and you can speak intelligently about it, you can kind of make sense of other things. So if you feel like you understand financial statement presentation, right? Or I didn't really study the balance sheet, so I don't get retained earnings. Well, we know that net income flows into retained earnings. So if you understand the income statement, you can kind of make some inferences, if you will, about certain things that happen after the fact. So it's really important to learn the content because it helps you in those areas where you might not study as hard. And you get that question to say, oh, I've never seen this before, but I know that in order for this to happen, A, B, and C needs to happen. So just trying to develop a logic and make sense of the material, because one day you're going to have to do this in practice anyway, right? So you might as well get into the rhythm
That's
of
right.
understanding how to make sense of things.
Right. When it's not posed to you in this typical question format like that, right? In a real world scenario, why would I use this?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think, part of the reason that we're here too is to let people know that there's resources like you and I out there that can help, with specific topics. If there's something that isn't making sense, I would absolutely send clients to you to say, help me out with retained earnings or the statement of cash flows. Like, I just cannot get that to work. And, there's people like me who will help you in terms of the planning or getting over that mental side of it, that part of you that says from fear, right? I'm not ready to take it. When what we really need to do is just boost up your confidence and get you ready to take that exam and not get in your own way.
Right.
And it's really not, at a time, it does become not so much about the technical preparation, right? You're ready for that test. We've got to just be mentally prepared. So there are resources available for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I mentioned in our last module about having those sidebar conversations, because I'll work with students and we're studying 6 weeks maybe, and we get into week 4 where everything has been fine, and all of a sudden the exam is 2 weeks out and it's like, oh, wait, I got to push this back. I'm not ready. No, you're just getting the jitters. You're just getting nervous about it because you've been smooth sailing all this time.
Right.
We have gone over all of these simulations, all of these multiple choice questions, and you were just fine. So it's natural for that to happen. If you have something big coming up, the closer it gets, the more anxious you get, right? So that's a natural feeling. And when it comes to coaching, that's one of the things that I appreciate about us doing this, is that it's more than just the technical content. We could easily create study guides and videos and throw those at you and say, have a nice day. But there's an element of personal interaction and that coaching that you need to say, look, it is okay. You have to walk into that testing center like, I got this. I've been studying for 6, 7, 8 weeks or however long, and I'm not going to allow the fact that D-Day is here to hinder me from being successful. So that motivation and those talks are really important.
Absolutely, because you could put all of those hours, countless weeks, hours into preparing, and it's really like it's just getting in our own way. It happens all the time. So we'll definitely dive into that in greater detail, I think, in another video, because that's a topic worth talking about. I think it happens for a lot of candidates.
Yes, I think we can do like a whole session on just that one thing.
Well, I call it your superhero self. Make sure you're going into that exam as your superhero self, not not that version of yourself that's
Right.
defeated and scared and, your
Right.
shoulders slumped and you're like
Yes.
not
Sweating,
confident.
sweating just because you're in the parking lot.
Yeah, right. All right. So how about CPA exam advice? Did you get some good advice during your CPA journey?
So it was more of like the push and the support and the cheerleading, if you will, because when I started studying for the CPA, it's because I was serving on the board of NABA and for the Atlanta chapter. And I think everybody except maybe myself and another person were CPAs. And so I always felt like, wow, they're CPAs. I can't wait to get there. And I was just so intrigued and inspired by them. So when I started, it was a challenge. Like, what are you waiting on? Why are you not a CPA? And the person that I was talking to, God bless her, Tamika
Mhm.
Bullitt, um, she's like, why are you not a CPA? And I said, well, my kids are little. Okay, so what's stopping you? Um, I got a lot going on at work. Okay, so what's stopping you? And
Yeah,
she kept asking me that question
I love
until
it.
I was just like, yeah, what is stopping me? She literally talked me out of my excuses. And so
Hmm.
that was the motivation for me to say, yeah, what am I waiting on? Because if I keep saying my kids are little, I can keep saying that for the next 18 years, or if I say I have a lot going on at work, when do we not have a lot going on at work,
Right.
right? So I appreciated that nudge from her, um, talking me out of my excuses and challenging me to just go ahead and do it. But even along the way, if people would say, "Oh, you're studying," yeah, I'm doing audit right now. I just took FAR and BEC, and it's like, you know what? Keep going. It'll be so worth it. There will be
Hmm.
just a world of opportunity that opens up. So every time I talk to somebody, CPA or not, um, they were just very supportive, very they made me feel good and want to go back and keep going, because it was just like, okay, keep going. You got this. You're going to do well. And I love that. And that is so needed, because those nights when I was up at 3 a.m., banging my head, like looking like this, like I was trying to figure out how am I going to get finished? When am I going to get done? I just want my piece of paper already. So I
Yeah,
loved the fact that I had so many people cheering for me, um,
absolutely.
even when I had my frustrating moments. So having that support team, those cheerleaders are critical.
I love that. I think cheerleader, that's like the best way to describe it too,
Yeah.
right? That they're
Yeah.
really cheering you on. They're encouraging you to keep going, even when you want to quit.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. So get your own cheerleading squad, everybody. Get those people in your corner that
Yes.
are going to push you, who are not, most importantly, I think, not going to listen to your excuses.
Mm.
That's a big takeaway, I think, from this whole conversation today. It's like, what's stopping you? That's such a
Yeah.
good question. Just keep going.
Yeah. And the good thing is, I didn't solicit any cheerleaders. So let's be clear about that. Like, people genuinely wanted to see me win. And so when I told them
Mhm.
what I was doing, it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Keep going. And I remember when I passed, when I finally got done with the exams for good, I put this post on Facebook that I finally passed. I'm done. I beat the CPA exam. And one of my friends from when I was growing up is like, hey sis, I don't know what that means, but congratulations, because that sounds like you just did something major. And so
Mm,
that's why I say, even the people who are not CPAs, who don't understand the nuances of trying to get the license, when they see you going through the rigor and trying to get there, they will just cheer you on. So you don't have to say, hey, can you support me or pray for me? Or, they, once they see and realize what you're doing, it's just like, oh yes,
mhm.
that's amazing, keep going.
Yeah.
So
I guess my point is they could ask for it. If they weren't coming to
yeah,
you, you could ask for it.
there's
Oh,
my
there's
light.
your
Hold
lights.
on.
Say you're here still. We've had too much fun. The lights think we're not here.
Yes. Again, that technology being a gift and a curse.
I
So
know. I love it. All right. So I got some interesting advice when I was sitting for the exam. And the one that well, there was a lot. So I got a lot of advice. So I happened to be surrounded by CPAs and other people who were sitting for the exam or had sat for it recently. So if any of you watching are in that place, you might have this similar experience where I almost got too much advice. People were coming to me out of the woodwork, like, oh, well, here's how I did it, or here's how so-and-so did it. Here's what works.
yeah.
And they were very confident in their advice, right? And they were obviously meant well, but not all of that advice works for everybody. And not every strategy works for everyone, even if it has worked for other people. So that was one of again, sort of a gift and a challenge. I know they intended it to be helpful, but not all of it was. But the thing that I heard and latched onto might have been because of who I heard it from. It was somebody I really respected and trusted. They said, go ahead and set a timeline for yourself, commit to a time frame, and just take it. Yeah. And I think if I hadn't heard that and sort of set my mind to that at the very beginning, I easily could have fallen into those same traps of, oh, I'm not ready, or I need 20 weeks to study for this exam, right? Which is not really, that's too long, right? To be clear.
Yeah, definitely.
Too long. And so I had a plan. I mapped it out ahead of time, not knowing a whole lot about it, and stuck to it. So for me, that really worked. I needed some additional rigor and structure and something because I didn't feel like it had a lot of structure. There's too many options of what order to take it in and how long. Nobody was telling me when I had to take it. So that really helped me, and I appreciated that. And I think I had a similar cheering squad with me in that I had the gift of that a lot of my friends were taking it at the same time. So if you have that in your organization, in your firm, utilize those people as resources and kind of band together.
Definitely. I love that example you used about people, sharing their experiences and telling you what to do, because lately I've had a lot of CPA moms or CPA candidates who are moms reaching out, and we've been doing sessions, and it's a lot like when you're pregnant and people try to tell you like, oh, you need to pack this and this is what's going to happen and this is what's going to happen, and it's like, just because your birthing experience went one way, mine could go the total opposite. So it's one thing to cheer people on and support them and give them some advice, but it's another thing to try to force your experience and your thoughts on other candidates. And going back to the FAR example, where I've heard people saying so much, and even I think just last weekend, somebody is like, how did you pass FAR? In my DMs on Instagram, like, how did you pass FAR? Because I heard it's so hard. And it's like, don't let these people get into your head, because I know people who pass all 4 parts in like 6 months or 9 months, which is fine. But there's what worked for you might not work for me or work for the next person. So I definitely want you guys to keep that in mind, that just because BEC was hard for somebody, that's the other thing that I heard a lot is like, oh, you'll be fine on BEC. It's easy. Like, no, BEC is a beast. It's 5 different topics that are not related at all. Right. So you can't take what you learn in corporate governance and apply that to cost accounting, because they're polar opposites. And so I tell people, don't underestimate BEC thinking that because there are fewer simulations and the written communications that you're fine. It's not. Right. It is not. So don't let other people's experiences dictate how you move when it comes to taking the exam.
Yeah. Everyone has their own journey, right? Yep. Everyone has their own story and their own path. So I think the big message I'm taking from that example too is not to compare. I think that's really important, to not compare your journey to someone else's.
Right. And that's on the CPA exam and in real life.
Life, absolutely. Just because my journey looks one way and yours looked another, we're both CPAs, right? So at the end of the day, we're going to the same place. It's sort of like, Google Maps, right? You put in your
Right.
destination, but there's thousands of ways to get
Yes.
there. Lots of
Yes.
different routes. Some of them have more
Absolutely.
traffic than others. But so
Yeah.
there are more efficient ways to get there for sure, but that doesn't mean that you don't get there eventually.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, we have loaded them full of information, things to
Yes.
think about, considerations on study materials, supplemental materials. So if somebody wanted to connect with you or ask you a question specifically, how could they get in touch with you, Nikki?
So I am on Instagram a lot. My IG is Nick Winston CPA, NickWinston CPA. I'm also on LinkedIn under my government name, Nicole L. Winston. And then feel free to email me. My email is nikki@nickWinstonCPA.com. So I love to do this, love to talk about this, more than happy to answer your questions, help you through some difficult topics, and really help you be successful on the exam.
Awesome. Fantastic. If you have questions for me, my Instagram is at Well Balanced Accountants. It's all one word. You'll find us there. You can email me as well, Erin at Well Balanced Accountants. And we'll link all those somewhere.
Yeah,
Wherever we
definitely.
put this, we'll put the links.
but we're definitely out here in the universe. We are not hard to find.
That's right.
So we are glad that you guys tuned in. I know that this is super valuable for y'all. And that's why we're doing this. So if you have something specific that you want us to address or a burning question that you want us to answer, definitely hit us up. Hit us up on email, LinkedIn, and we are happy to answer or maybe do another live session for y'all.
You might just see us in your Facebook or Instagram
right,
one of these days. We'll surprise you and we'll shout you out for your question.
Yes, we sure will.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See y'all next time. Bye.